Hello, this is Sir JD, and this is English 104. This is our lesson 1 for the second quarter. This should have been done last Monday, but we know we had our activity, so we will do it now and in this way, so that next week we can just proceed to the regular lesson. Okay, the title of our lesson for today is Defining and Making Sense of Position Papers. To cut this short, position papers are technically our opinions, our stand about something or anything, and we use academic methodologies, or we use some academic professional techniques just to make it more formal, just to make that opinion more credible. We do those things. All right, so that's the summary of it. Now, speaking of opinion, I just want us to have this very short activity, but for now, we'll just do it on our own. Okay, now I just want you guys to think about these things. What's your opinion about women talking more than men? What do you think about that? Do you think that's true? Do you think that's not true? Do you think that's false? Okay. I will leave you guys with your thoughts, and let's just proceed to the second issue. Now, this is a more complicated and a more controversial issue. Okay, this is the issue. This goes like this: transsexuals should be treated as real women. We know there are some issues like should they be allowed to enter the women's comfort room or toilet, or should they be allowed to join Miss Universe or other beauty pageants, and should they be allowed to join women category or the women category of any sports, things like that. So what do you think? Should they be treated as real women? All right, I know this is a very controversial issue, so how about the third issue here? What's your opinion on this statement? What can you say? Is this true? Is finishing college secure, or does our security for certain success? Can we be so sure that when we finish college we can be 100% successful? What do you think about that? Okay, now these are issues and these are relevant matters that our opinions can be divided, right? Some people might agree, some people might disagree. Okay, now let's proceed. Here's what we're going to do. Let us find out how to make our opinions more academic. Again, I acknowledge and I'm really appreciative. I appreciate the fact that your generation is really expressive when it comes to your opinions. You're opinionated. Well, how do we make those opinions, those legit, those good and nice opinions, how can we make them more relevant by making them looking more academic, and how we can make them look more credible? Okay, so here is what we're going to do. We're just going to define a position paper first. I think I have already defined it in a very short manner earlier, but let me just read this for a while. A position paper is an essay. Don't forget that, guys. A position paper is also an essay that expresses a position on an issue. It gives arguments that support the opinion of the writer based on the facts collected. So, just like any other essays, it's very systematic. It's not just randomly written, but it's all about an opinion, our specific stand, or our specific view regarding an issue. Okay, and by using a system or by organizing our thoughts, we also use some supporting details or ideas or facts to strengthen our position or to strengthen our opinions. Okay, now let's just proceed to the second or to the next slide. Now, why is it important to write position papers? Here we have some general importance. When we say general importance, these are the very obvious importance or relevance of making position papers. Okay, these are the big and visible importance. Number one, a position paper can of course serve to transfer knowledge and understanding of a particular topic. Well, of course, let's say there is an expert or someone wrote a position paper about gaming. Let's say about Dota 2 being one of the best games out there. So because the writer is an expert of that game, of course, the readers would gain knowledge, would gain understanding. There would be a transfer of ideas because of that specific position paper. Okay, so that's the first general benefit. It's really obvious, right? When I write a very good position paper, people might learn about many things from that position paper. Now let's proceed to the second reason. It can provide information to aid in making a decision in various contexts. Now let's imagine a group of people. Let's say your group of friends, your circle of friends. Now, there are some moments that we need to decide, right? Like from the simplest of things, like where to eat, where to go next, where to hang out, or even some serious decisions. Okay, some groups or some friends are even deciding for serious things like where are we going to study college, and how are we going to go to that specific place, and etc. Now, we know that one of the things that can embetter, or one of the things that can make the decision making easier, is when others are providing some serious opinions, right? They are giving us some factual opinions. Maybe a friend would tell you, I think guys we should eat at this restaurant because according to what I have seen in Facebook, they are serving our favorite food. And the other one might suggest, oh, I think that's a nice idea, and we can also go to this cafe afterwards because I really love the coffee there, and they have a promo according to what I have read, or according to what my brother told me. So as you can see, because some opinions are educated and supported, the decision making was easier, right? So imagine what if that will be applied in more serious context, right? Now let's go on to the third one. It also presents position papers are also important because they present professional perspective or perspectives in a professional or academic discourse. These are the more important or the more serious use of it. Let's say you are in a company meeting and the boss is asking for suggestions or maybe some project proposals. Okay? Now, instead of just having a wasted meeting, or instead of wasting time when people are just suggesting out of their baseless opinions, maybe one of the employees says, I think we should make a huge canteen because I'm always hungry. You see, that is useless. Why not, instead of just collecting those random ideas, why not allow each of the employees or each of the members of that specific council to write their own position papers, to write some report papers, something like that, or positional papers that will tell us some educated and research-oriented suggestions, right? It can add perspective. Okay, so those are the three basic or general importance of position papers. They give us information, they also help us in decision making, and they provide us with additional and helpful perspectives whenever we are deciding in a specific context or in a very academic or professional context. Okay, now let's go on to the more specific benefits of doing or writing a position paper. The first specific benefit is for the government. Okay, we know that in the government, one of the major thing that they should do there is to implement some rules or policies or laws to guide our country, to guide the morality, to guide the technicalities, the needs of our country. So, would you imagine a country implementing some laws just because of some baseless opinions, just like what I'm telling you earlier? Let's say a senator said, I think we should normalize marijuana because I love the smell. That will be really useless or somehow even harmful to the country because the implementations are not based on studies. They are not based on factual things or relevant information. So, in a government, they should write some position papers. I don't know how they call it in the government, but I'm pretty sure they have this kind of writings. Okay, they write some suggestions or implementations or proposed laws, and then they should provide some evidences as to why they think it should be implemented, and then of course some processes would be done. There will be some deliberations, there will be some analyzations about that specific suggestion after it will be a policy. Okay. Or after or before it can even become a policy or a procedure. It needs to undergo that very important process. Writing is very important, isn't it? Research is really important. Okay, so let's proceed. Here is the second specific relevance of writing a position paper, and this is in the context of businesses or collaborative organization. Okay, well, this is done to look for problems, to identify problems, and to look for solutions. Okay, so we can make 3 position papers in the context of businesses. If you have a business, you can probably apply this principle. We can make 3 kinds of position papers. Number 1 is the pre-assessment. Okay, this is a position paper written, or we should write this, when we are just in the planning period or the planning stage. Nothing is being done yet, and we're just planning, we're just collecting some ideas, we're not moving yet. So we can make our position papers or position paper to show what should be done at first. What can be the business? Let's say, for example, it's not enough to know what business are we going to raise, but it's also important to ask other aspects. That's why we need to make a pre-assessment position paper. And then let's say you or your business partners have already decided on what kind of business you're going to make. You already benefited from your pre-assessment plan. Now you're going to execute something. You're going to start doing something. We also need to make position papers. Okay, when we are executing something, because we need to see at the beginning what are the probable problems or what are the probable situation. Okay, what do we have and what we don't have yet? Okay, while we are beginning this specific project. Okay, that's the second one. And the last one is called the post-assessment. This is to evaluate the business if it's already ongoing, if it's already running and it's pretty alive. Of course, we cannot stop researching. We cannot stop being mindful of the business just because it's already undergoing. So we need to write our position papers as well, right? We should see what are the successful points, in what aspect are we doing good, and in what aspect are we doing bad, where can we improve, and etc. Okay, so that's how important position papers are. Now again, it doesn't need to be called like that in the field. What I mean is, when you graduate and you plan to make a position paper, It doesn't always need to be called the position paper. All right, it can be a proposal paper whatsoever. I don't know how we should call it in our own professions or in the future, but the same concept applies. Okay, now let us proceed. How do we know if a position paper is actually relevant or good? Okay, here are some of the guidelines. Number one, please make sure that the position paper is concerned about a real issue or an important issue. A genuine controversy. When we say controversy, it affects other people. It's not just limited to your personal experience, but it is becoming scandalous to the point that other people are already involved, or a larger context is involved. So make sure that a position paper is not just all about how to deal with cockroaches, or probably how to deal with a flat tire in the middle of a traffic, because those things can be a little too personal. Make sure that a position paper is all about a real problem that concerns others as well. If you're working in a company, if you're having a business, make sure that your position paper is really relevant. It's really addressing an issue. It's really addressing a huge issue in your company or in your workplace. Okay, and then the second one is it should be driven by a beneficial advocacy. I'm always saying this, there's a difference between a reformer and a basher. A basher can just look and look for mistakes. It would just tell negative things about a person, about an organization, and etc. But they would just stop there. That's a basher, right? She sees a very negative thing and she stops doing something good. She just mentioned it just for the sake of mentioning it. But a reformer, someone who seeks to experience reform or changes, that person can also point out some wrong things, right? That person can also mention a personal or an organizational mistake, but he doesn't stop there. He or she will not stop there, but there would be an advocacy. There would be a suggestion. After you have given the diagnosis of a disease, please give us the medicine. Please give us the prescription. Please medicate us. Same thing with the position paper. After giving some issues, or after revealing some issues, after revealing some negative things about a specific issue, please make sure to provide some purposes, provide some solutions. What you think are the solutions to that problem, or the solution to that problem, okay? And then the third one is that it should be heavily supported by research. That's very given. Okay, and number 4, aim to a specific audience or reader. Make sure that we are not addressing a very broad audience. What I mean is, if we are going to talk about students, make sure that your position paper is intended for students, and don't include others as well, right? If you want to make a position paper about adults, it's better that you just create another one, a new one. Just don't mix them. Make sure that one position paper is just focused in a single target audience, okay? To a single target audience. And then the final one, a good position paper is written in a systematic and sensible manner. It makes sense. It's not just a random compilation of words. Some of you guys are asking last PBT, Sir JD, why are we having, or why do we receive a quite low grade, not satisfying grade in our essays? Well, that might be because of two reasons. Number one, it might be because you passed that late. That's number one. And number two, it might be because I cannot really make sense out of the whole system of your essay. Again, guys, I just want to clarify this. I appreciate your sentences. I appreciate your vocabulary. I appreciate your efforts. But sometimes good sentences becomes bad when they cannot make sense of the other sentences that are with it, right? Let's say you have a very good sentence here, you used very good words, but the question is it making sense? Is it connecting? Is it connected to the other ideas presented in the whole essay or paragraph? Make sure it's systematic and it's sensible. It makes sense, okay? I hope that's clear. Now let's continue. How to write a position paper. These are the steps. Now, because I already mentioned this earlier, that a position paper is also a kind of essay, we will just adopt, or we would just use the parts of an essay to write our position paper as well. Step number one, we should write our introduction, of course. In the introduction, you have to introduce the topic and then provide history and background of the issue. We can also describe the issue on hand. We can summarize the issue. So we really, really need to make or to do our research. That's for our introduction. Now, for the body, I want to explain a very important thing here. For the body, when we are making a position paper, make sure to write the opposing argument of the issue. Let's say in a specific issue in your work, let's say the issue is, should we have a longer break? Okay, that's the issue. And you are on the affirmative side. You say, yes, we should have a longer break. When you're writing a position paper, make sure to know if there are some people who disagrees with you or who disagree with you, who have some other insights, and make sure to write them in your body, in the body of your position paper. Make sure to objectively include what they think or what their opinions are. Okay, make sure to include their ideas objectively. Make sure that you would include what they are arguing for, what they are thinking. Okay? Not just your own claim, but the claims of your opposing side. Okay? I hope that's clear, because it will make your position paper much objective. It will really look professional because you're not one-sided. You are also presenting the side that negates your side. After presenting the side of your opponents or your opposing side, it's now time to write or to defend our own ideas. Give your own point and make sure they are supported by research. Okay, now let's continue. This should be step 3. Sorry, this is just a typographical error. Step 3 should be conclusion. In the conclusion, you can restate both sides, your side and the side of your opponent. Restate it, maybe summarize it there, and then summarize your own arguments. What are your arguments? Present it here. And then finally, don't forget this. Don't ever forget this. After you close or after you finish your position paper, make sure to provide a call for action. Because again, we don't want to be looking at the negative things. We don't want to be just arguing and then we're not really putting on a solution. We're not really advancing a solution. We must have a solution in mind. And that's the last sentence. That should be the last part of our position paper. We should remind the readers of what they should do or we should do. So that's pretty much it for this specific lesson. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you can answer the quiz today. Thank you and see ya. Goodbye.